Welcome back to the deep dive. Okay, today we're stepping away from the purely theoretical.
Getting our hands dirty.
Yeah, exactly. Metaphorically, at least. We're digging into some very specific, practical home science.
Sounds good. What do we got?
We are looking closely at a custom experiment. It was shared by Eng in Notes on Gardening, specifically part 655.
Ang's notes. Always interesting stuff there.
Totally. And this one focuses on how to best, kickstart Tecoma stand seeds. Yellow bells.
Right, Tecoma stands. And this is great because it really connects that everyday gardening impulse with actual scientific questioning.
It does. The experiment basically puts standard gardening advice head-to-head with, well, how plants might do it themselves in the wild.
Precisely. Testing that. Bury the seed wisdom against just scattering them.
So for you listening, our mission here is to pull apart the thinking behind it, the setup, and crucially, the first results Ang reported.
Yeah, from that post on September 20th, 2025. It's all about Tecoma stands or yellow bells, as you said.
So, Tecoma stand seed germination. Scattering versus burying. That's the title. Gives us a really focused look.
It does. But before jumping into the methods, we really need the backstory on these seeds. It matters.
Good point. Because these weren't just bought from a packet for this test, right? There's history.
Exactly right. That context is, well, it's pretty critical. It shows a certain dedication, I think.
Ang tracks everything, it seems. So these seeds, they were stored.
Yes. Harvested earlier and kept. Not fresh off the plant right before planting.
Okay, so when were they harvested? How long were they stored? Does the source say?
It does. It reminds us that these specific seeds came from the original mother plant.
The one Ang bought way back when?
That's the one. During the Chinese Lunar New Year. That was documented in part 517.
Wow, okay. So we're now at part 655. That's quite a time gap.
It is. It suggests these seeds have been stored for many months, maybe longer. It adds a whole layer about seed viability over time.
Right. It's not just about germination method, but also about older seeds. So this becomes almost a mini longitudinal study on that plant.
You could definitely see it that way.
And the timing of the planting, why now? Was it just, spring cleaning the seed stash?
No, it seems much more deliberate. The trigger was actually the mother plant itself.
Oh, how so?
Ang noticed the original plant was, and I quote, blooming and fruiting again.
So the plant was signaling, like, conditions are right.
Exactly. It's a natural cue.
Yeah.
If a parent plant thinks it's a good time to make seeds, it's probably a good time to try planting the stored ones.
That makes so much sense. Observation driving the action, tied to the plant's own cycle.
Right. It makes the whole experiment feel very grounded and timely.
Okay, so, motivated by the mother plant, Ang sets up the test. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of the experiment itself. How was it designed?
It was quite neat, actually. Very controlled within its limits.
Yeah.
A single empty seedling tray was used.
Okay, one tray. Why is that important?
Well, it means both methods experience the exact same soil, the same ambient humidity, temperature, light exposure. It minimizes environmental variables between the two test groups.
Smart. So method one?
Simply scattering. Seeds were just sprinkled, broadcast across the soil surface in part of the tray.
Just dropped on top.
Right.
And method two?
That was the more conventional approach. In another section of the same tray, seeds were individually planted, buried in the soil.
Buried. Okay, so that's the direct comparison, is scattering versus burying.
Head to head.
And that scattering method, it really does push against what many of us are told, especially starting out.
Oh, absolutely. There's a standard wisdom, isn't there?
Yeah, what is that typical advice this experiment challenges?
Generally, for many seeds, the advice is to bury them at a depth roughly equal to, say, half their size, maybe their full size, something like that.
And the logic behind that? Why bury them?
Protection, mainly. It provides darkness, which some seeds need, but more importantly, it creates a more stable microenvironment. Consistent moisture, stable temperature. It lets the first root, the radical, emerge safely before facing the surface.
Right, keeps things stable. But Ang had a different idea, a rationale for just scattering the Tecoma stands.
Yes, a very logical hypothesis based on observation of nature.
Which was?
Well, if these plants manage to reproduce successfully in the wild, without any gardener fussing over them, then the seed must be able to germinate just fine, sitting right on the soil surface where they fall. Nature scatters them.
So Ang was thinking, why should I interfere if the plant's natural strategy is surface dispersal?
Exactly. Is the protection offered by burying actually necessary for this specific plant? Or is it just a general rule that might not apply here?
That's a great question. Wilderness logic versus, like, horticultural control.
Precisely. And it taps into something deeper about seed biology, too.
How so? Is there maybe a reason Tecoma stands might want to be on the surface?
Potentially, yes. Some seeds, especially smaller ones, or those from pioneer species adapted to open ground, actually require light to germinate. It's called light-dependent germination.
Ah, so burying them could actually stop them from sprouting.
For certain species, yes. Burial would block the light signal they might need. So that standard bury it advice, while maybe great for, say, beans or corn, could be the wrong thing for a plant like Tecoma stands. It might be evolved to send sunlight right away.
So Aang's scattering wasn't just being lazy, it was potentially biologically informed.
It seems that way, a hypothesis grounded in the plant's likely natural strategy.
Okay, but there's always a catch, isn't there? Aang included a caveat about scattering.
A very important one. The gardener noted that surface germination relies heavily on getting the environment right externally,
Meaning?
meaning the gardener has to provide what burial provides naturally. Specifically, the quote was about needing the right environment triggers, like moisture and sunlight.
So scattering works if you manage the watering and light carefully. The protection isn't inherent anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It puts more onus on the gardener to maintain those surface conditions consistently. No buffer from the soil.
Okay, so we've got the setup, the contrasting methods, the reasoning behind them, high stakes for the seeds. What were the initial findings?
Well, Eng checked in relatively quickly, and the observation was, and I quote again, "So far, both methods are working."
Both. Just working. That sounds almost too simple, like a tie.
Huh. Yeah, on the face of it, it might seem a bit anticlimactic. Okay, both work. So what?
Right. Does it mean the experiment didn't really tell us much useful? Or is there more to it?
I think there's definitely more to it. The fact that both worked initially is actually quite significant, especially for Tecoma stands,
How so?
because it suggests that, at least for the very first stage, getting the seed to crack open and send out a root and shoot burial, isn't strictly necessary for this plant.
Okay.
The surface-sown seeds germinating successfully alongside the buried ones points to a certain robustness or adaptability in the species.
Or maybe that light dependency thing we talked about. The surface ones got light right away.
That's a very strong possibility. It could mean that for Tecoma, light is a key trigger. And as long as moisture is present, it doesn't need the darkness or physical protection of burial to kickstart the process.
So the big takeaway for the gardener, for you listening, is about efficiency, perhaps.
I think so. If your goal is just to get germination started, scattering is confirmed here as a perfectly viable, maybe even faster or more natural method provided.
Provided you manage the environment, consistent water, good light.
Exactly. You have to mimic the conditions the seed needs, which burial does passively. Scattering requires active management. It validates Aang's wilderness logic for this species.
It saves effort in planting, maybe, but adds effort in maintenance, potentially?
Could be. It's a trade-off. But it's valuable knowledge. It confirms intuition with empirical evidence, even on this small scale.
And it highlights the difference between just sprouting and, long-term survival. Aang seems aware of this, right? The post mentioned continuing observations.
Yes, explicitly.
Yeah.
Aang stated, "I'll continue to observe the seedlings and keep you updated on their progress."
Which is key.
Absolutely crucial. Because germination is just step one. The real test comes later. Will the surface seedlings be as strong? Will their roots establish as well? They're more exposed.
We're more vulnerable to drying out, maybe getting dislodged.
All of those things. Initial success doesn't guarantee eventual success.
Okay, so let's try and synthesize the main point from this initial phase then. What's the core message?
I'd say the core takeaway is that for Tecoma stands, based on this specific experiment, successful initial germination doesn't seem to depend solely on being buried.
Surface scattering works.
It works, yes. Likely because the plant might be light dependent, and it confirms the seed's inherent hardiness. But it comes with that condition. The gardener must ensure the right moisture and light are consistently available.
It offers a valid alternative planting strategy right at the start.
Definitely. A strong, immediate alternative.
Okay, so building on that, here's something to think about, something Aang will presumably be watching. We know both methods start the plant, but what about the quality of that start?
Yes. The implications for later development.
Exactly. Given that the scattered seeds are right on the surface, less anchored, more exposed to drying winds, maybe direct sun baking the surface, what differences might we predict, or what should we look for in survival rates or just overall plant vigor down the line? Comparing those surface-started ones to the ones that started deeper, protected, with roots maybe getting a better initial hold and stable moisture.
That is absolutely the critical next question, isn't it? Does the easier start via scattering lead to weaker plants in the long run? Or does the potential benefit of immediate light outweigh the risks of exposure for this species?
We don't know yet from this source.
No, we don't. We'll need Eng's follow-up observations to see how the two groups fare over time. It's about resilience versus initial speed.
A fascinating tension. Well, we'll have to leave it there for now, keeping an eye out for those updates.
Indeed. It's a great little ongoing story in practical plant science.
It really is. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into a simple yet really insightful gardening experiment. We'll catch you next time.